With just 2 games remaining and a bowl game bid on the line, everything is in play for the UCF Knights. But can they go on the road to beat West Virginia? Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Charge On. As always, I'm your host, Sean Green. Before we get started, a quick word from our sponsor, Bet Online. Bet Online is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for online betting. From the earliest odds to in-game live betting, Bet Online provides you with all the action and the ability to watch the games as they happen. With a large selection of odds on everything from football, NBA and college basketball, NHL to UFC and MMA. Head to BetOnline today to get in on the action with America's most trusted site for online wagering. BetOnline, the game starts here. I said it. We are coming to the end of the 2024 season. Boy, has it been a roller coaster. Just me today to preview this matchup on Saturday against West Virginia. And there's a lot. I was going to say there's a lot to get to, but it kind of breaks down pretty simply. UCF is 4-6. They're 4-6 on the year. It's been a crazy year. I think we've talked about it the last couple weeks. That I think these next couple weeks are going to be a very interesting time for UCF football and the future of UCF football. The episode all last week for the bye week episode was talking about the positives and the negatives that have gone on into the season. And we tried to really hit on the positives. And also we talked about Gus Malzahn's job status. Now, I said everything's fluid. And I still stand by that. But nobody knows what's going to happen. Nobody knows what's going on behind closed doors. But the goal still should be the same. The goal still should be to go to a bowl game. Now, we said it in the preseason, like if you go to a bowl game and you go 6-6 again, that would be a disappointment. And to some extent, that is still true. And to a greater extent, that is still true. A 6-6 season would still be a massive disappointment with all of the talk during the preseason. But with that being said, with the way this season has gone and all of the different changes having to be made and all the different coaching changes and all the different starters, and it's been a roller coaster. If UCF could somehow find a way to make a bowl game, I think everybody would be ecstatic. Now, with that said, you have to beat West Virginia on the road. And you have to beat Utah. 2 winnable games. But can UCF go on the road and beat West Virginia? Well, West Virginia is in a similar situation to UCF. And that's kind of where we're going to get into, this matchup. West Virginia's 5-5. Coming off a really rough loss to Baylor. They were at home. And I think when you talk about home games and road games, especially in Big 12 play, it kind of meshes together. No home win is safe. No road win is secured. I mean, every game in the Big 12 is a tough one. West Virginia got off to a okay start. They lost to Penn State in that first week. A lot of people thought West Virginia was going to take that next step. They had no business being good last year, and Neil Brown found a way to kind of get this team last season to reach a height that nobody expected. And it wasn't like it was a huge height. It was just a really good season. So people thought, oh, you have Garrett Green coming back. You have Donaldson coming back. You got a lot of pieces returning. Somehow, this West Virginia team is going to take that leap. Well, in the first week, they got killed to Penn State. And then a couple weeks later, they go on the road to Pitt, and they lose in just heartbreaking fashion at the end. They beat Kansas. They beat Oklahoma State, which now don't look like the greatest wins. They lose to Iowa State. They lose to Kansas State. And now, the last 3 weeks, they've beat Arizona. They beat Cincinnati. But they lost at home to Baylor. They beat Arizona on the road, and they beat Cincinnati at home. But they lost, on the road, and they lost at home to Baylor, 49-35. Now, if you look at this defense, I guess we're starting with the defense. West Virginia hasn't been great. They haven't been great on defense. They've allowed a lot of points, especially the last, 5 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks. They gave up 28 to Iowa State. They gave up 45 to Kansas State, 26 to Arizona, which we all saw Arizona. They are not a very good football team. You can make the argument they are the worst in the Big 12 along with Oklahoma State, but gave up 26 to Arizona and a 31-26 win. They gave up 24 to Cincinnati, and then they gave up 49 to Baylor. So this defense has been on a decline for a while now. Even to Kansas, they gave up 28. Oklahoma State, they had a good defensive game. They only allowed 14. But again, we talked about Oklahoma State. They just had the worst year you could possibly have. They're 0-7 in the conference. So there's that kind of aspect. But for West Virginia, to kind of get 49 put up on your home field, which I've stated on this podcast that I think it's going to be tough to go into that environment. West Virginia is one of the best environments in the Big 12, in my opinion. It's going to be tough to go take over and dominate on the road. UCF proved, though, last week. They went to Arizona, or not last week, but the week before. They went to Arizona State. You should have won that game. Now, I'm not saying Arizona State's one of the best environments in the Big 12, right? But you still went on the road, and you've proved that you could make some noise. Earlier, you went to Iowa State. Should have won that game against a top 10 opponent at the time. So, or a top 15, whatever they were ranked at the time. So there are signs that UCF can go on the road and perform very well. The issue is finishing. Can UCF go into West Virginia and finish? And we're talking about the West Virginia defense, so let's talk about the UCF offense against this type of team. They're not good at stopping the run. Again, this West Virginia defense doesn't do a whole lot of good at stopping opposing offenses. UCF has proven that they can be more balanced in the recent weeks. That's going to be something that I think is going to be a focal point. Can UCF stay dynamic and able to get Dylan Risk, a lot of touches at throwing the football? Are you going to get RJ Harvey going early? Teams are having to readjust how they play UCF, which has benefited UCF in this back half of the year. You have a quarterback that can throw the football, and you can still be a really dynamic running team. I think that's going to give West Virginia some fits. Now, West Virginia does have some really good players. Josiah Trotter is a guy that really stands out on tape when you watch him. He's obviously tied for their leading tackles. He's got 4 sacks, 2 pass defenses, 1 interception. Dude's a baller. Anthony Wilson at safety. He's tied for their first leading tackler. Those are the top 2 guys in terms of tackling. And when you turn on the tape, those guys are potential, top Big 12 players. But besides that, you really turn on the film and you see a West Virginia team that has a lot of holes on that defensive side. Now, West Virginia fans will tell you, this has not been the season they wanted. 5-5 is okay. I mean, if UCF was 5-5, we'd be jumping up and down. Neil Brown, if I had to guess, it looks like he's on the hot seat. Looks like he's most likely going to get fired at the end of the season. I don't know that for sure. But I think these two programs are in very similar situations. They're in very similar places. And I think for UCF to kind of be the lesser of two evils here and beat West Virginia, you're going to have to put up about 30. You're going to have to put up about 30. And solid offenses have proven they could do that against this team. But if you play into the West Virginia game plan, if you give up 30 to West Virginia, and Baylor gave up 35, so I'm not going to sit here and say it's a perfect science, but if you let this West Virginia team score 30, you're most likely going to lose this football game. But on offense, you need to score over 30. Because if it gets into an offensive shootout, I like UCF's chances in that sense. But as UCF has proven, they've proven that in the last couple weeks, and especially on the road, they make 3 to 4 really bad plays that cost them the game. And it doesn't need to be a whole lot. It can be 3 to 4 crucial plays that lose you a football game. So which team's going to make more mistakes? That's going to be the real question. Which team gives the other team more opportunities to score? And I don't know. I can't answer that question. I don't know who in this game is going to be the one that gives up or has more penalties, makes more mistakes. You would assume it would be the team on the road in UCF. And listen, if I had to make that bet, I'd probably make that bet. Now, UCF is coming off of a bye week, and there is that kind of nugget. Now, under the Gus Malzahn era, UCF has not been good after a bye week. They have had some tough games after bye weeks, but there's no excuses. They don't lose by a lot. They obviously had the Oklahoma game. They had the Iowa State game, I think, after the bye. If I'm remembering that correctly, it feels like 20 years ago. But they play very well. But it's a couple plays. And that's going to be the theme of this show, really. It's going to be the theme of this game. Who makes lesser mistakes? Who gives lesser opportunities to both teams to score more points and ultimately win the game? Let's talk about this West Virginia offense a little bit. Last year, and this kind of bleeds into last year's game. Last year's game, a lot of people assumed that this would be one that UCF could easily win. You heard Garrett Green's name for the entire year, but you watched West Virginia play. You heard all the Neil Brown rumors and speculation that he's going to be gone by basically week 3. So when West Virginia came into the bounce house last year, we're thinking this is going to be a piece of cake. Well, with UCF, nothing is a piece of cake anymore. There was a lot of turnovers. I think John Rice, if I'm not mistaken, had like 4 interceptions or something like that. There was a lot of turnovers. And I think the final score was 41-28 because UCF's defense couldn't stop the run, couldn't stop really anything. Garrett Green did whatever he wanted against this UCF defense, and ultimately West Virginia won 41-28. I think this is a different UCF defense. Now, this year, obviously, Garrett Green, you had the Nico kid start early. Garrett was out. He did pretty well. Garrett kind of has struggled this season in terms of protecting the football. He has 11 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. I think you've seen that with a lot of Big 12 quarterbacks this year specifically. I feel like every week we go through the list and we say, well, it's going to come down to, does the quarterback throw you a couple picks? And Garrett Green's no exception this year. He's thrown for about 1,600 yards, 11 touchdowns, 9 picks. Been sacked 14 times, which isn't great, but it's not terrible, especially this late into the year. And I think they've got an okay run game. You've got 2 guys in Jaheim White and CJ Donaldson that can really flat out just run the football. And you don't know who's going to get it at what time. You have to be ready for both. CJ Donaldson has 7 touchdowns. Jaheim White has 5. And then when you talk about Garrett Green in that aspect of running the football, for a UCF defense that has struggled against the quarterback run, that does scare you a little bit. Because if I'm Neil Brown, and listen, like, all you have is that, like, you have the UCF film from this year, but you also have the film that you played them from last year. Now, UCF has proven that they can stop the run. They've done an incredible job at stopping the run this year. That's been a huge positive. There's been a lot of negatives. One of the huge positives has been the complete turnaround and being able to stop the run. Teams are not just running all over UCF. They're having to be dynamic, just like UCF has been trying to be for the last couple weeks. Teams are having to throw the football. They're not just running 45, 50 times a game because they could against UCF. If I had to guess, you're going to see a heavy dose of West Virginia's run game on Saturday. I think Neil Brown knows what worked for them last year. I think you're going to see a lot of the run-pass option. You're going to see Garrett Green run a bunch. He has 98 carries for 600 yards and 5 touchdowns on the ground this season alone. I think for UCF to have a chance in this game, because ultimately, I don't know who I'm picking yet. As you guys know that watch me, I never pick. Me and Nick never pick before we do these. For UCF to have a chance, you need to hold Garrett Green and keep him in the pocket. Because I don't think there's going to be a lot of UCF sacks this game. There hasn't been all year. I don't think there's going to be a lot of sacks this game specifically. Garrett Green is elusive. He can get out of the pocket, make plays with his feet, and run the football. UCF hasn't proven they can stop that. So for UCF to have a chance, you really need to force him to throw the football. And he's got to throw you at least one pick. Because if you're in this kind of trading touchdown type of game, there becomes the nervous part of, okay, when is UCF going to make the stupid play? Like UCF was up by 10 points last week. And it didn't matter? No. It didn't matter at all. So when we talk about the quarterback run game, you have to stop it. But you also have to still play the way you've been playing when it comes to the run game. You have to make sure you're P's and Q's with who's in the game at running back. Make sure you know their tendencies. And listen, I have all the faith in this UCF defense that they can do it. The question is, how many opportunities are they going to have to get or give to the offense? Because that's also been an issue, right? Complementary football. Complementary football is making sure that the opposing or your defense isn't on the field too long, making sure that your offense is scoring when they get extra opportunities. So if the defense makes a stop, the offense needs to go score points. Too many times, and especially the last couple weeks, has it been defense makes a stop, offense doesn't get any points. And like we said, this defense is average. When they get a stop, the offense has to go score. So that's going to be the mismatch or the real. If UCF can get the ball when the defense makes a stop and they go score, I think they have a really good shot in this game. When you look at guys that have made an impact in the receiving game for West Virginia, it's really been three guys: Hudson Clement, Traylon Ray, and Cole Taylor. Those are the three guys. They've got other guys that are kind of, again, big catch threats, like a Justin Robinson. He's got 12 receptions for 199 yards, 16.6 yards per catch. But the main three guys are Clement, Ray, and Taylor. Clement, 31 receptions, 454 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Ray, 28 receptions for 426 yards and 4 touchdowns. And then their tight end, Taylor, who, in my opinion, is one of the better tight ends in the Big 12. 388 yards, 35 receptions, and 3 touchdowns. So between Justin Robinson, Taylor, Ray, and Clement, they have 3, 6, 10, 13 out of the 16 touchdowns. So 4 guys have 13 out of the 16. So it's a little different than what we've been seeing in the Big 12 this season specifically, where it's usually one guy. Like Arizona State, it was one guy. Arizona, one guy. Trying to think of all the games we played. It's basically been one guy that's killed UCF. I think TCU, it was really one guy, but in the first half there was about 2 or 3. This is a team with West Virginia where all your corners need to be locked in. Because if one guy is really sucking, they're going to throw it to him constantly. And then you'll see one of those 4 guys have a big day. So I think it's going to be vital for a secondary that has struggled. Luckily, it sounds like B.J. Adams might be back for UCF for this game. So looking forward to getting him back on the field. But with that being said, the entire secondary needs to be 100% locked in. Especially if you've got a quarterback that's running around trying to make plays with his feet. You can't allow plays to be made after 7 seconds. It needs to be, if a play is getting made, it's getting made within the first 5 seconds. If he's getting out of the pocket and making plays, it's usually where you're put into a really tough situation. Besides that, let's kind of talk a little about what we need to see out of this UCF offense, right? What do we need to see out of Dylan Risk? What do we need to see out of RJ Harvey? Dylan Risk, I said it, and I'm not going to sit here and sugarcoat. I think a lot of people are ready to anoint Dylan Risk as QB1 next year. And I think this is another big test for him. I think he showed a lot of promise, a lot of poise, a lot of grit against Arizona State. I think he was not the reason UCF lost. He did throw the pick 6, but I think a lot of people blame that on coaching and putting him in that situation and then blaming special teams as to that whole mishap. But besides that, Dylan Risk played a really good football game, and he's played a couple pretty good football games. There's 2 more games left, and I think you need to be able to see his progression in these however many games that he's going to play, right? If you just anoint him as QB1 next year, and again, the coaches are not, you don't know if you're getting a new coaching staff. There's a lot of factors that play into this. But he's putting enough on tape right now to make you think, okay, he could be the guy. There is wiggle room there where he can improve. And I think that's beneficial for UCF fans, beneficial for UCF to know we think we might have a guy. But these next 2 games are going to be crucial. If he somehow goes and leads this team to back-to-back wins to get to a bowl game, when they have no business getting to a bowl game, I think, yes, you could comfortably say, and then, hell, if he goes into a bowl game and wins that, I mean, I can't think of the record right now. Would it be, I can't think of the record, but it definitely would be the best record of all the UCF quarterbacks on the roster right now. So I think if you look at that, it's 100% you go in, okay, he's the guy. But I do think if you don't get to a bowl game, if there's a little bit of a struggle in the next couple games, I'm not saying he's not the guy, but I think you do have to, there needs to be an open competition regardless. And I'll say that regardless if we go to a bowl game or not. I think there needs to be an open competition next year. You don't know who will be on the roster. You don't know who's going to enter the portal. You don't know which coaches are still going to be here. So, again, we talked about the Gus Malzahn situation. Not just that is fluid. Everything around this program is fluid. Everything. But for Dylan Risk specifically, a win this weekend and a win next week against Utah would be absolutely huge for his future with the Knights as potential QB1. Huge. And he's got a chance this weekend. We talked about the defense a little bit. He's going to have a chance to really do some damage here on the road. He proved it against an Arizona State team. He proved that against a really solid defense, he can make the throws, he can make the plays to really stand out and impress UCF fans, impress the coaching. But it's going to be up to him. Jacoby Jones has really showed out as of late. I think he's got 1 year of eligibility. I'm really excited to see what he can do next year specifically. And then it comes down to RJ Harvey. I think he's had, in my opinion, in terms of just skill position player, not including quarterback, he's had a top 3 career at UCF. It's incredible to watch him. I think he's a top 3 pick in the NFL draft. Do I think he'll get drafted there? No. But the things that he does, if you watch him every Saturday and you watch how he plays, kid's a stud. And whoever takes him is going to be a real lucky team. And I know we're getting sidetracked. We're getting off topic here. But the point still stands. I think if UCF really wants to win this game, RJ has to have another 150 with 2 or 3 touchdowns. That's kind of the game he's going to have. You're going to have to be able to control the clock, limit West Virginia's possessions, because I think they will be able to score on UCF's defense this game. And that's where the fear comes in of if this becomes an offensive shootout with the Mountaineers, it's going to be a long day for the Knights. It will. Because I don't think the team is built to get into that type of shootout. Right? Especially with the mistakes that you know that they're probably going to make. At this point, we know what this team is. We know the mistakes they're going to make. We know what's going to happen. And who knows? They might put the complete game together right now. But I think that happened against Arizona. I think it's now kind of back to the reality of what this team is, which is still a much better version than we have been getting. But at the same time, coming off of a 49-35 loss at home to Baylor, I think this team's going to be motivated. I think West Virginia's going to be really motivated to have a much better performance, especially with their head coach's job on the line. So let's quickly, and I'm doing this live. I'm doing it live. Let's quickly look up the betting lines for this game because I actually haven't looked. I have no idea what the betting line is for UCF versus West Virginia. UCF is favored by 3 on BetOnline, and it seems like everywhere. So UCF is favored by 3. I guess I'll just go into my prediction. This is one of our shorter episodes in terms of our previews. Because I think I guess this goes into the preview. The season's been a massive disappointment. Luckily, UCF is facing, kind of in this back half, a lot of the worst teams in the Big 12, which that's where, even if you get to a bowl game, there is that little caveat of at least you got there, but you got there in a way that's not making you any more confident about this team than you were, right? I don't think people are giving enough credit to West Virginia. I get last week's performance was really bad, and the teams that they've beat are teams that I think every Big 12 team would beat. But at the same time, I think UCF has figured something out. They've shown that they've improved in a lot of areas. They've shown that they can beat kind of a lesser-than team. I don't know if West Virginia is that lesser-than team. I'm going to go UCF win here. For literally a second there, I was going to pick West Virginia. And I think that's where which team's going to make the mistake. I don't know. I'm going to pick UCF just because I feel like I pick against UCF every week. I feel like this is the one week I could probably pick UCF and feel okay about it. But it wouldn't shock me if West Virginia wins this game. Either way. I'll stay with the spread. I think it's probably a field goal game. I'm going to say UCF 31, West Virginia 28. You got to score over 30. You got to hold West Virginia below 30. I think it's one of those type of games where either team can win 31-28. So if West Virginia comes out on top with this and lights UCF up, I wouldn't be shocked. I'm going to be honest. I wouldn't be shocked. But I'm going to pick the Knights in this one to set up a very interesting Black Friday. Because that's the thing. I want an interesting UCF versus Utah game. That's what made the Houston game fun last year, was we're 5-6. You have to win the Houston game to go to a bowl game. So I think, once again, obviously you need this win. But if you don't get this win, it's going to make it a long, long week for Night Nation. But, all right, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. We were a little bit everywhere in this episode, but I appreciate you sticking it out. I appreciate you, as always, tuning in. Please like, subscribe, comment, share. Do all that you do. We greatly, greatly appreciate it. We will be doing our live watch-along. It's going to be our last one of the year. Don't know if we'll do any for basketball. We're trying to figure that out for basketball. Team's 4-0 now. We have our press credentials. We know which games we're going to. We're going to do a lot of post-game shows for basketball in the January, February type of time frame. So be on the lookout for that. But UCF, West Virginia, we'll be going live 3:15 on YouTube. So make sure you stick with us. Me, Nick, Steven Leonard is going to join us for at least the first quarter. We'll see how long he wants to stay after that. But all the boys on for the live watch along, so be sure to come over there on Saturday. Drop your score predictions also down below. I want to hear what you guys think, because I genuinely have no earthly idea how this game is going. West Virginia fans, let me know what you guys think. I'm genuinely interested. All right, everybody, thank you so much. As always, this has been Charge On, presented by Bet Online. We will see you on the live watch along.